In ancient times, one of the most dangerous things that a woman could do in her life was to get pregnant. While the concept of pregnancy was a cause for joy due to the promise of new life, the complications and risks it entailed were equally daunting. This reality was no different in ancient China. The Chinese had a lot of traditions and superstitions that they believed would safeguard both the mother and child during the mystical journey of pregnancy and childbirth. The concept of yin and yang transcends pregnancy and permeates throughout Chinese philosophy. In simple terms, yin and yang are opposing forces that must remain in balance for a person to enjoy a healthy and harmonious life. Yin represents the feminine, darkness, and negativity, while yang embodies the masculine, brightness, and positivity in life. When someone has an excess of one, they must take measures to restore equilibrium by enhancing the other. The ancient Chinese people believed that pregnancy and childbirth to be a huge cause for yin and yang to get unbalanced, making the woman more susceptible to illness and injury. During and shortly after pregnancy, they believed that when a woman lost blood during the childbirth process, it tilted her body towards yin, making her colder. So she needed to engage in practices to boost her yang and bring balance back to her body. One way to achieve this balance was through dietary choices. A popular dish for this purpose included pork knuckles mixed with ginger and black vinegar, as these foods were considered to hold yang properties. Remarkably, even in modern times, this superstition continues to influence women's behavior. Some may go to extreme lengths, risking heat stroke or even death, as they try to avoid cold temperatures after giving birth in an attempt to restore their yin-yang equilibrium. In ancient China, safeguarding the thoughts and well-being of a pregnant woman was a deeply ingrained belief. Negative thoughts were perceived as having the potential to transfer to the unborn child through the concept of heart reading. To nurture positive thoughts, women turned to the solace of good poetry and beautiful stories, while gossip was forbidden due to the belief that it could poison the baby. Another intriguing belief was the impact of the environment on a developing fetus. The home where a pregnant woman resided was considered sacred, and all repairs and construction work were postponed until after the child's birth. This practice was rooted in the fear that the noises associated with construction could lead to deformities in the unborn child. One thing that the ancient Chinese took very seriously at all times, especially during pregnancy, was the threat of evil spirits. Consequently, pregnant women were forbidden from attending funerals, as it was believed this might attract lingering spirits. In cases where a family suspected the presence of malevolent spirits in their home, various protective rituals were enacted. These ranged from the woman sleeping with a knife under her bed to hanging a paper cut in the shape of scissors from her bed curtains, or even using a tiger skin as a protective shield over the bed to ward off these spiritual threats. The ancient Chinese did not understand miscarriages, and when one happened, they believed it was because the spirits stole the child. To try to prevent this, parents refrained from naming their children until after birth. Instead, parents would give their children fake names, also called milk names, before they were born to scare the evil spirits. The meld names would often be a fierce animal name or something ugly. This was to trick the spirits into thinking that the child was not worth taking from them. The real name was only given after birth, and sometimes a child could have multiple names throughout their early life before getting their real one. In contrast to modern Western cultures, where baby showers are celebrated before birth, ancient China considered celebrating babies before their arrival as unlucky. Parties were held after birth and during the first few months of the baby's life. Instead of community support, it was the mother of the pregnant woman who provided everything needed a month before the expected due date. The grandmother would contribute a bundle of clothing known as tsushan to encourage the birth, and 3 days after the birth, she would visit and bring the rest of the baby's clothing and equipment. Interestingly, there were several other superstitions regarding pregnant women's behavior, including avoiding sitting on crooked mats, looking at clashing colors, losing their temper, or engaging in sexual activity. While these restrictions were believed to be necessary at the time, we now understand that these activities are generally safe for pregnant women. When it came to the actual giving birth process, women had limited options, as they lacked modern pain relief methods. However, they did have some techniques to ease the process, such as drinking strong herbal tea. After childbirth, it was customary for the father to send money and wine to the wife's parents to announce the birth. The wine would be decorated with specific ribbons to signify whether the child was a boy or a girl. To share the news with other family members and friends, the new parents would send out baskets of red eggs, with an even number symbolizing a girl and an odd number representing a boy. As we have said several times now, that the ancient Chinese people were highly superstitious. When a baby was born, the hour, day, month, and year of birth would all dictate which of the 8 characters a child would be born under, and which would rule the child's life. It could determine whether a child would be wealthy, successful, blessed, or not. Wealthier parents would even consult fortune tellers to read their baby's fortune or help choose the most auspicious time for conception. Furthermore, the Chinese believed that each person was composed of different amounts of 5 elements: water, fire, earth, wood, and metal. If a child lacked one of these elements in their life, parents would incorporate that element into their name to balance it. However, having an excess of any element, particularly water or fire, was seen as potentially harmful, as it could lead to injury or even death from fire or drowning, respectively the 10th month. In the modern world, pregnancy is commonly seen as lasting for 9 months. However, in traditional Chinese culture, pregnancy is considered to last for 10 months. This additional month is attributed to the first month of the newborn's life. Chinese women adhere to an ancient tradition known as doing the month or sitting in. This tradition dates back at least as far as the 1st century, and typically takes place during the first 30 to 40 days after a woman gives birth. During this time, a new mother is expected not to leave her home for any reason, disallow visitors, or even take a shower. It's a rigorous period for the new mother, and she is usually accompanied by her mother or mother-in-law during this time. In stricter households, even the new father might be sent away from the house. The tradition originated from the belief that women and babies have lower immunity during the first month after birth. To counter this vulnerability, specific foods and drinks were consumed to rebalance yin and yang and boost the immune system. Additionally, certain foods were chosen to help shrink the mother's uterus and encourage lactation. Red dates, sesame oil, and ginger are considered particularly beneficial for both the mother and baby during this time. In some cases, a woman's stomach might be wrapped and bound during this month. This practice aimed to prevent organ prolapses and encourage the organs to return to their proper positions. It was also done for more cosmetic reasons, as it was believed to improve the mother's waistline. The strictness of these practices could vary from one household to another, but the general rules include avoiding cold drinks and wind to discourage cold and maintain yang energy. Raw fruits and vegetables were also avoided, and food was kept bland during this period to align with traditional beliefs and practices. In addition to the practices mentioned earlier, there were several other customs and restrictions surrounding postpartum care in traditional Chinese culture. These included avoiding activities like climbing stairs, having intercourse, or crying. Interestingly, while labor itself might have elicited some fears among women, tradition taught them not to fear it. In the ancient world, including ancient China, the role of women was often centered on the vital task of bringing new life into the world. As for the strangest tradition among these, it can vary from person to person based on cultural perspectives. However, the practice of binding a woman's stomach and the strict confinement period known as doing the month might strike many as particularly unusual when viewed through a modern lens. These customs reflect the intricate web of beliefs and practices that shaped postpartum care in traditional Chinese culture.